Welcome, everybody, to Dramatic Readings. This week we have an erotic adventure with thieves and magic, Bra of Holding by Nobilis Reed. Let's get started. Here's the blurb. Tretoine is a burglar with just one special talent. She can smell magic. She and her partner, Andreyn, plan to rob the most powerful wizard in her city. Her escapade will catapult her into an adventure that will transform her life, her body, and the power centers of the city. It will also introduce her to Henrio, a young rake with a filthy mind, just the way she likes it. This is going to be something else. And of course, I may have to do a little bit of adjustment to the wording. And by adjustment, that means any cuss words or anything like that, I'm going to have to bleep out or skip over. So know that this is clearly an adult novel and that clearly you should go look at it for yourself if you want to see what all the juicy bits are. I will be reading a sample because chapter 1 was actually quite long. So I won't be reading all of the chapter, but I will be reading a sample and I'll make sure I'll leave off in a nice hook so that you can check it out. So here we are. Bra of Holding by Nobilis Reed. Andreyn and Tretoine crouched barely even breathing on a rooftop overlooking the dead-end street where the entrance to Hardigar's townhouse stood. They said not a word, twitched not a muscle, as they waited for the last sliver of moon to dip below the horizon. Then, when the street was lit only by starlight and the mage fires burning in the sconces on either side of the great iron door, did the two black-clad figures climb down from their perch and into a clean but well-shadowed alley. Again, without a word, they donned their green and silver tunics and cloaks of academy apprentices that had hidden there and made their way out onto the street. They gave a constable strolling by a polite nod, as any student would, and were answered by a cheery "evening" in return. When they rounded a corner, Andreyn whispered, 12 minutes, and they changed course, angling directly towards the wizard's heavy door. Lady Caltrina de Hossor off Uldric, our conweaver, swept down the wide, curved staircase, holding back a smirk of satisfaction as every eye turned in her direction. In some of the less guarded expressions, she saw surprise, even amazement, but she was certain that even those who had carefully schooled themselves were just as astonished as the rest of them. A few steps from the bottom, she stopped and clasped her hands in front of her at sternum level, a pose none of the other ladies present would have been able to take. The musicians brought their song to the graceful halt, and the numerous conversations around the room stopped, or at least paused. Prince and Princess Haldrick, Duchess Larissa, Baron Umber, Lord Yaru, Lady Jacqueline, honored guests, she called out at a level calculated to be audible throughout the hall, but only to those who stayed quiet. Welcome to Crystalford. Thank you for all joining me to celebrate the night of return. I am flattered and gratified that you have graced me with your presence. I have been informed that dinner is ready, so if you would, please join me for the holiday feast. She raised her arms, and the huge doors of this dining room swung open, revealing a long table glittering with silver, crystal, and gold-embroidered linens. Caltrina descended into the cluster of well-wishers, more interested in making a good impression on her than the food. They thanked her for the invitation, complimented the quality of the wine, and inquired after her mother, whose ailments were long-standing enough to be common knowledge. Not a single one commented on her appearance, despite the fact that her chest was suddenly and inexplicably as flat as the marble floor at their feet. It was not until an aged gentleman in long robe that had been out of fashion 100 years previous tottered up to her that topic arose. He smiled through the threads of his long beards with a twinkle in his eye. Comfortable, my dear? Yes, quite, replied Caltrina. You have quite outdone yourself, High Mage. I feel as light as a feather. Thank you. But, my dear girl, even in such an environment as this, there is no need for such formalities between us. Call me Hottegar, or even Harry if you like. Very well, she said. Harry, and in return, would you do me the honor of escorting me to the dining room? By all means, he said, offering an elbow. She placed her hand lightly on his arm, which he then covered with his own gnarled fingers. They made slow progress, but that was fun. They needed to arrive at the dining room last, and it would not do to make any of the other guests hurry to keep up. Is everything ready? Asked Caltrina quietly. Have no fear, Harry croaked. We cannot afford to repeat the incident with the potions. It was only by sheer coincidence that I was able to salvage the situation. I understand. The wizard glanced around the dining room as they crossed the threshold. You have to admit, though, it has made these parties a great deal more scenic. You do love the mountains, Caltrina agreed. However will you manage when they are gone? I shall endeavor to survive, my dear. The guests stood behind their assigned chairs, waiting for Katrina and Hartugar to take their places. Lined up like this, it was easier to see the discomfort the noble ladies endured as they waited. Most of them would have been standing for at least an hour, and while their feet would have been in less pain due to comfortable slippers, Katrina had brought them into fashion last month. Their backs would have been aching, along with their shoulders and hips, depending on how their corsetry was engineered. Most of them had walking sticks of one type or another for maintaining balance, with jewels and elaborations displaying their wealth and class. She did not delay them any further. As soon as Hardigar reached his spot, the prince and princess sat, followed by the duchess, the baron, and then everyone else. Several dozen pairs of breasts came to rest on the buslions built into the table, evoking a collective sigh of relief from the ladies and a groan and complaint from the wood. Caltrina made note to have everyone that looked into. It wouldn't do to have anyone believe that the alterations to the table had been in any way haphazard or makeshift. The soup arrived in 4 steaming tureens, which the staff served from silver carts, garnishing each cup with sprigs of fresh herbs. In accordance with the new custom, they were delivered not in front of each diner, but rather to the side, as the space directly in front of half of the guests was completely occupied by the bustlings. But what was fashion without inconvenience? When the servers came to her, however, they reverted to the old custom and placed the cup in front of her. This did not go unnoticed. Line break. That was easier than it should have been, whispered Andreyn, as he gently closed the door behind him. Tretoine scowled. What are you talking about? That was double crayon with a pause mark and a capture class. Picking that lock was a effing mastery. The entry wasn't what she was expecting. Beyond the narrow foyer was a simple hall with a single set of stairs leading to a second floor balcony. There was a circular red carpet on the floor and a few tapestries hanging from the walls, but little else in the way of decoration. Worse, all of the doors looked the same. There was no clue as to which might lead to the wizard's treasure vault. Yeah, and it's a wizard's door. You'd think there would be at least some magic on it, no? Tretoine laid her finger along her slim nose. If there had been, I would have smelled it. Well, what does your nose tell you now? She sniffed as she moved around the room. I think a shake of the head. Nothing. I thought I smelled something a moment ago. Well, let's find something valuable and get out of here. I don't want to be here when the old crag gets back. Having little else to go on, Tretoine shrugged and headed up the stairs. This place can't be that big, she said. I'm sure we'll find something. Line break. It wasn't until the fish course was cleared away that the silence broke. Princess Aldrena Haldrick finally asked the question that all the women and most of the men were dying to ask, but no one wanted to be the first to broach the subject. No doubt much of the conversation leading up to that moment had been about who was going to ask it and how. Milady Caltrina, she said, speaking in a voice loud enough to command attention. I must say your new gown makes quite a statement. Why, thank you, said Caltrina with a respectful nod. If your highness believes so, it must be true. I can't think of how I would ever fit into such a thing, she replied, with only the slightest glance at her cleavage. As befit her rank, she bore the largest bosom of the gathering. If the Bustillon had not been there, the flesh would have laid on her lap with plenty of extra to spill over. This was it, the moment of truth, the moment Caltrina had anticipated for weeks. The right tailor, she said, with the slightest glance toward Haridar, can work miracles. Line break. Tretoine opened another door, peeked through, swore under her breath, and closed it again. Another corridor? This place is bananas! Where are the effing rooms? There's got to be a trick, Andreyn said. The trick is we go back the way we came and get out of this crazy place. Andreyn followed her gaze. Oh, which way is it? We backtracked twice already. I don't think we're going to find it. He growled in frustration. A window would be enough, but I hadn't seen a single one of those either. Tretoine opened the door. Wait a minute. She stepped through, walking into the circular red carpet, and raised her eyes to the arches supporting a balcony overlooking the hall. This looks like the first room we've come into. Can't be, said Andreyn, following in. For one thing, we've been on the floor this whole entire time. Remember, we came up the stairs, and there haven't been any more stairs or ramps or anything like that. For another, he said, crossing the room to a blank wall, that big iron door would be right here. Tretoine stepped beside him and knocked on the stone. It was like everywhere else that they had checked, solid, completely unyielding. Andreyn rubbed his hand over his face. That trap I was worried about, we're in it. And we are, well, truly stuck. Unless you can sniff out whatever spell is keeping us mixed up. Tretoine took another sniff. You know how if you have been immersed in a scent for a while, you stop being able to smell it? Yeah, I think that's what's happening. This whole place is magic. So I can't tell one thing is magic or another. Great. So what do we do now? Just sit and wait for the high mage to come back and turn us both into toads? Tretoine walked over to the edge of the carpet and knelt. The first whiff of magic I got was standing here on this carpet. So she shrugged. Can't hurt to investigate. She peered at the edge of the carpet, where the fringe of gold tassels was connected to the rug with intricate embroidery. Look close, she said. Andreyn peered at the stitching. That looks like writing, and it's not a repeating pattern. Some kind of runes, like maybe a label on each of these tassels. Tretoine took one in her hand and pulled. It stayed firmly attached, but a stronger whiff of magic hit her nose. She lifted, and the rug pulled away from the floor to reveal a short copper rod with a ball on the end, engraved with runes all along the shaft. What the hell is that? Asked Andreyn. She picked it up and sniffed it. Oh yeah, magic. She sniffed again. It makes things happen somehow. Complete something. Like a key? Exactly like a key. Well, let's find out what it opens. You know what I think? I think it opens anything. Tretoine brought a little rod over to one of the doors and rapped on it with the ball in. The rod vanished, and the door shimmered briefly. Magic, she said, blinking her eyes, recoiling from the floor. Strong, too. What kind? Dunno. Never smelled that kind before. I don't think ever. Well, let's see. Andreyn turned the handle and opened the door. Beyond was a small room, just big enough for a table and a few cushioned dining chairs. A bowl of stew sat steaming and aromatic in front of one of the chairs, and a fire burned merrily in a small hearth. Aha! You did it! I bet if we pull the rug up from a different tassel, we get a different room. Now all we have to do is find the treasure room. Or the exit, said Tretoine. Eventually, said Andreyn with a wry smile. And that is the end of the sample. As I mentioned before, this was Bra Holding by Nobilis Reed. And I'm TB Bond doing a dramatic reading. I hope you enjoy, and please check out this work for yourself. Read a bigger sample for you so that you can see if you really like it. And also, too, I'm going to leave a link in the bio so that you can check it out on Amazon. And as always, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Hit that bell. Let everybody know. Please subscribe to me. I definitely appreciate it. Get the word out there about all the types of books and, of course, dramatic readings. Thanks, everybody, and looking to catch you the next time. Bye.